You might have heard that 90% of startups fail. I'm here to share how you can be in the other 10%. Throughout my time as a venture capitalist, I've interviewed over 1,200 founders and CEOs to find the next billion-dollar business. As it turns out, there is a common thread among these 10% venture scale companies. Some phrases always seem to spread before a market emerges. With that hint, I think you can imagine what the one feature of every successful company in the world is. It's not funding, it's not technology, it is the language used to describe themselves. It is the vocabulary associated with the company. Just a heads up, I'm not a linguist. I'm an investor that looks for signals. And constantly being obsessed with venture creation has brought this revelation to my attention. We always assume ideas spread because they are good. But that's not true. Some of the best ideas in history never took off, while some very mediocre ones became billion-dollar markets. The most successful startups in the world don't just create new products. They create new lingo. Is it possible that if you own the lingo, you might own the market? Our everyday language is an indicator of where the world is heading. Lingo is a distinctly human mechanism to spread ideas, and language is how we all create shared realities. Few words capture moments of evolution so accurately that we integrate them into our everyday language. Think about it. When you find a new way to do something, you talk about it all the time. You share it with your community and make sure everyone else uses it too. There's always a hidden message embedded in our conversations, one we silently communicate every time we speak. I learned this lesson the hard way. A few years ago, as a founder, I was building a note-taking tool for sales teams. We were really convinced we were building something cutting edge. Then one evening in a casual chat, my co-founder mentioned a term I'd never heard before: AI agents. He explained it's an AI that could do a role of a salesperson. I shrugged it off. This sounds futuristic. 6 months later, AI exploded, and AI agents became the industry standard. Suddenly, what we thought of as cutting edge felt outdated. The market had shifted, not because of a technological breakthrough, but because of a new term entering the conversation. That was the moment I realized language signals market movements. Money follows lingo. Own the lingo, own the market. After this experience, I dedicated myself to understanding the impact of everyday language on venture-scale startups, and in the process have created a new investment thesis and a concept called lingo leverage. And today, I want to break down the characteristics of lingo leverage with 3 key insights. First, it's usually the first of its kind. Think back to a moment when you heard a word or a phrase for the first time. It might have been the name of a cooking utensil or a new kind of technology. When we hear a word for the first time, our human minds are frantic to understand what it means. We really need to understand and label it, give it space in our mental maps. Great new ideas, the ones that are paradigm shifting, take a special place in our mind. This is what people think of when they talk about the first mover's advantage. Let me give you an example. In 2005, 2 MIT entrepreneurs proved that if you can name the game, you can set the rules. The founders of HubSpot noticed traditional outbound advertising was broken because the internet had made information free for everyone. They coined a term, inbound marketing, for a new approach: attracting customers with valuable content rather than pushing ads. By giving this new behavior a name, inbound marketing, they didn't just start a company. They started a movement. They rallied marketers worldwide to their idea. Over the next decade, HubSpot grew from a tiny startup to a $20+ billion titan of its category, utterly synonymous with the inbound marketing concept they evangelized. This isn't just a tech phenomenon either. Athleisure rebranded fashion, dark kitchens is rebranding delivery-only restaurants. First mover's advantage is almost always a myth, except when it's to spread a lingo within a network. The second aspect of creating lingo leverage is who makes the lingo. If you, the person running the business, makes it, it's called marketing. like in the example of HubSpot with inbound marketing. Whereas if your customers create their own lingo associated with your company, it's our God, like Netflix and chill. Netflix grew right around the time this phrase started becoming popular. And I believe this is the kind of lingo that is more valuable. Because creating a hidden message is random. Only when you take 100 jabs at it, you know which one sticks and spreads. Netflix and chill was a playful phrase that hinted at a larger truth, that Netflix had 1 hour free time and language was the trophy for that victory. So if your customers are always engaging in creating lingo associated with your company, you're right around the corner to scale. The third aspect of creating lingo leverage is how sticky your lingo is. Not just the catchiness of the phrase, but what the words represent to your customers. The more essential a lingo is to a certain audience, the more likely they're going to use and spread those words. Let's take a classic example of a lingo becoming essential to an audience. Remember the first time you heard the phrase, "There's an app for that"? It was Apple's cheeky way of telling us that the iPhone could do anything. But beyond selling phones, that slogan introduced us to a new mindset, that whatever you need, software can deliver. At that moment, Apple wasn't just marketing a new feature. They were reframing our reality. Our language shifted, and soon our behavior did too. We started seeing problems and solutions through the lens of apps, an idea that barely existed before. So remember, when you create lingo that changes how people see reality, that is an indication of having strong lingo leverage. The best kind of lingo leverage is built around deep market insights. Because when your insight is strong, the power of evolution will push the lingo into everyday vocabulary. Language is contagious. We don't keep catchy new phrases to ourselves. We spread them, consciously or not, through every conversation we have in our networks. As founders, you should never leave lingo to luck or the meme makers of the internet. Many of the smartest entrepreneurs in the world intentionally craft new terminology as a part of their strategy, because they know they're not just fighting for their customers' wallets, they're fighting for space in their minds and in their conversations. Using lingo leverage is how you can have your customers work on your behalf. And that should be the real target of every venture scale business. You need your employees, investors, and customers all working on your behalf to grow the business. The way I look for this in startups during due diligence is I start by asking them the linguistic assets they own. That is, have you created any lingo that is used by your customers in their day-to-day? If you have, does it have the potential to grow? How quickly is it growing right now? When I hear a founder use a phrase that sticks, I pay attention. Because if the words were to spread, the product probably will too. It is most certain that the next generation of unicorns are going to be the ones creating new realities in the minds of their customers. Already, words like generative AI and AI agents have created markets in the imagination of our society. It is only a matter of time before we know who ends up owning these words. Do you have the opportunity to create lingo leverage? If you do, start by crafting a word or a phrase, ideally not more than a few words. These words should capture a new behavior your business facilitates. What's a phrase that captures a belief you're challenging? If you want to create lingo leverage, think about how you'd fill up this equation. Lingo leverage is equal to new phrase plus new behavior plus audience. And finally, to all the founders and future founders in the audience, audit your current language. Create lingo for a problem you're solving or a category you're creating. Make it catchy, easy to say, maybe even a little fun. Use it in every pitch deck, every blog post, every interview you create. Encourage your early users to adopt it. Because if it truly resonates, it will start to spread. And if it spreads, so will your vision. Remember, when you create the lingo, you set the narrative. You shift the conversation from we're a tiny startup to we're the leader of a movement. That's powerful. So own the lingo, own the market to be in the top 10% of startups that succeed.